The morning mist clung to the mountains like a shroud, drifting slowly through the jagged peaks of northern Iberia. The year was 718 AD, though the people hiding in the high valleys had lost track of time. For them, days were counted not by the passing of the sun, but by the distance between danger and safety, between defeat and survival. At the foot of Mount Laturce, a cluster of small huts huddled close together, built from timber and stone gathered from the surrounding slopes. Smoke rose thinly from their chimneys. Inside these makeshift homes lived the remnants of a once proud people, soldiers who had survived the fall of their kingdom, farmers who fled burned fields, women and children seeking shelter from the chaos that had swept the land after the collapse of the Visigothic crown. Among them walked Alaric of Asturias, a man in his early 30s, tall by local standards, with a lean face worn by sleepless nights. His cloak, tattered at the ends, bore the faded emblem of the Visigothic eagle, a symbol that once meant unity but now clung to memory like a ghost. For months, Alaric had moved from valley to valley, rallying survivors. He had not been a nobleman nor a high commander, but he had been a captain of the border guard in the days before everything changed. Now people followed him because he was the only one still insisting that their story was not over. This morning, he walked toward the small hall near the village's center, where a meeting had been called. As he stepped inside, he saw several familiar faces, elders bundled in woolen cloaks, young fighters sharpening battered weapons, and two women sorting bandages made from torn linen. At the far end of the room stood Irene, a healer from the coastal plains. She had arrived months earlier with a caravan of refugees. Her presence alone steadied the hearts of many. Her calm voice, sharp intuition, and deep compassion made her a guiding light amid the uncertainty. "You're late," she said with a faint smile, not looking up from the herbs she was crushing with a stone mortar. "I'm on time. Everyone else is early. You say that every time. Then it must be true." Before she could answer, the room fell silent as an elder stepped forward. Eldric, the oldest man in the settlement, rested on a carved wooden cane. His eyes, though dim, still carried the fire of memory. "You all know why we meet," Eldric began. "Word has reached us from the southern valleys. A new column of soldiers approaches." A murmur rippled through the room. Alaric straightened. "Are these scouts certain?" "Yes," Eldric replied. "3 riders from the valley of León arrived at dawn. They say the soldiers come not for battle, but to demand tribute, grain, livestock, and young laborers." At this, the healer Irene paused, her hands stilling. "Tribute again? But the winter was harsh. Many barely survived." Alaric looked around the room, reading the fear in the faces of his people. "We cannot give what we do not have. And if we surrender today, we will be asked to surrender again tomorrow." The youngest fighter, a wiry youth named Sario, stepped forward. "Then we fight." Irene shook her head. "You speak too quickly. A clash could cost many lives." Sario opened his mouth, but Alaric lifted a hand to silence him. "A single battle will not win back our lands, but neither can we bow until we break." He walked to the map carved into a wooden board at the center of the hall, a rough but functional drawing of the surrounding mountains. "They will come through the southern pass. If they reach the valley, we lose any chance of independence. But if we meet them in the high ground, in narrow places where their numbers matter less." "You believe we can stop them?" Eldric asked. "I believe," Alaric said, "that we must try. Not for pride, not for vengeance, but to prove that there is still a spark left in our people. And sparks, when protected, become flames." The room grew still. Irene stepped closer to the map. "Then you will need more than swords. I will prepare supplies for the wounded." "You assume there will be wounded," Alaric said softly. "There always are. But if you stand, I will stand beside you." A quiet smile crossed his face, rare for him. "Then let the mountains remember what hope sounds like." 2 days later, Alaric and 30 volunteers climbed toward the high ridge overlooking the southern pass. The ascent was difficult, the air thin and sharp. Wind howled between the rocks, carrying the cold breath of distant snows. But despite the hardships, spirits rose with each step. For the first time in months, the people of Mount Laturce were not running. They were choosing their ground. When they reached the ridge, the view stretched endlessly, the deep green valley below, the winding trail that cut through the mountains, and the tiny shapes of riders in the far distance. "They're coming," Sario whispered. Alaric set down his pack. "Then we prepare." They concealed themselves behind boulders, arranged signals, checked their equipment, and waited. Hours passed. The sun drifted across the sky. The approaching column grew larger, 50 riders, far more than expected. Alaric's jaw tightened. "Too many," whispered one of the older warriors. "Enough," Alaric answered quietly. "If the mountains shelter us, numbers mean little." Even so, fear gnawed at the edges of his thoughts. 50 riders could overwhelm us if the fight dragged on, but he refused to show doubt. He looked at each of his companions, their faces determined, their breaths steady. "Remember," he said, "we fight not for land. We fight for the right to exist." The riders entered the narrow bend below. Alaric raised his hand, waiting for the perfect moment. Then, a soft voice behind him whispered his name. He turned. Irene stood at the top of the ridge, wind tugging at her cloak. "What are you doing here?" Alaric asked. "You need every heart you can muster," she replied. Before he could respond, distant horns echoed through the valley. The first clash of the battle for the northern mountains was about to begin, and with it, the birth of the Reconquest. The horns reverberated across the valley, like the call of ancient spirits awakened beneath the stone. Below, the 50 mounted soldiers advanced at a steady pace, armor glinting, banners snapping in the brisk mountain wind. Their commander rode at the front, a tall figure wrapped in layered leather and scale armor, a deep blue cloak trailing behind him. Alaric crouched behind a boulder, his fingers wrapped tightly around the haft of his spear. The warriors hidden around him remained silent, breaths shallow, muscles coiled like bowstrings. The plan depended on patience. A single heartbeat too early or too late could doom them all. Irene knelt beside him, her cloak pressed flat against the stones so it wouldn't catch the wind. She carried no weapon, only a satchel of salve, linen, and herbs slung over her shoulder. "You still shouldn't be here," he murmured, without looking at her. "And you shouldn't be doing this alone," she replied softly. He almost smiled. Almost. But the riders were too close now. The column approached the narrowest stretch of the trail, where the path squeezed between two sheer cliffs, the drop on one side plunging into mist. Here, the soldiers would be vulnerable. Here, the mountain itself could become an ally. A shout rose from below. One of the soldiers pointed upward. "They've seen something," whispered Sario. "No," Alaric said calmly. "They only think they have." The wind tossed shadows strangely on these cliffs. Rocks shifted often with frost and thaw. A lone movement was nothing unusual. Still, Alaric signaled for silence, pressing his hand low to the ground. The riders slowed. Alaric waited. Another murmur rippled through the enemy ranks. Their horses grew uneasy, hoofs scraping the stone. "Now," Alaric whispered. From behind a cluster of boulders further down the ridge, 3 of his warriors shoved loose a row of rocks, large, jagged, carefully positioned the night before. They tumbled down the slope with thunderous force, sending shards of stone flying in every direction. The riders below cried out in alarm. Several horses reared. A few lost their footing, slipping dangerously close to the cliff's edge. "Archers," Alaric called. 5 of his fighters rose, loosing arrows that whistled down into the chaos, not aimed to kill, but to scatter and confuse. "Fall back," someone shouted from below. But the narrow pass allowed little room for escape. Horses pressed against one another. Riders struggled to turn around. The commander at the front raised his arm, shouting orders lost in the uproar. Alaric stood tall now, stepping onto an outcropping where he could be seen. "Hold!" the commander shouted. "Do not scatter. Hold the formation." His voice carried strength, authority that could steady even panicked soldiers. But the terrain was not his ally. "Signal 2, Alaric ordered. On the ridge behind him, Sario lit a small torch and tossed it onto a patch of dry brush. Flames crackled to life. The smoke rose quickly, drifting toward the trail below. It would not burn long. It didn't need to. It only needed to obscure vision and agitate the horses further. Shouts and coughing filled the valley. "Alaric!" Urain called urgently. "Look!" He turned. The enemy commander had dismounted. He was waving his men back, ushering them toward a wider section of the trail behind the choke point. He was calm, calculating, far more composed than Alaric expected. "This one is dangerous," Urain said. "Yes," he agreed. "He sees more than the others." Down below, the commander cupped his hands around his mouth. "Highlanders, we seek tribute, nothing more. Lay down your arms and you will be spared. Resist and you bring ruin on yourselves." His words echoed across the valley. Alaric stepped forward. "There is no tribute left to give, and even if there were, it is not yours to take. You defy the new order of this land. Your king has fallen, your laws have ended. Accept what is inevitable. No fate is inevitable if there are still hands willing to shape a future." There was no anger in the commander's voice when he responded, only certainty. "Then you force my hand." He returned to his horse. Alaric's eyes narrowed. "They're going to try to push through." "Can they?" asked Sario. "With enough discipline, yes." He scanned the enemy ranks. Already the commander was reorganizing the riders into 2 columns, one to absorb arrows with shields raised, another to push up the trail in a tight wedge. Alaric's heart tightened. His people had chosen their ground well, but they had not expected such a coordinated response. A prolonged engagement could overwhelm them. Then Irain touched his arm. "You see the fear in your eyes, but you forget something." "What?" "You are fighting for a home. They are fighting for a command." Her words steadied him more than she could ever know. He drew a deep breath. "Prepare the final measure." Sario nodded and ran along the ridge, gathering several warriors near a cluster of piled logs held in place by wooden wedges. This was a risk. They only had one chance to use it correctly. The enemy columns began to advance. "Shields up!" the commander barked. The front line raised thick wooden shields overhead, forming a protective shell. Arrows from the ridge bounced harmlessly off. The riders behind them pressed forward. Alaric waited until they were within the tightest point of the pass. "Now!" he shouted. Sario kicked the largest wedge free. The logs rolled downward, not many, but large enough to force the approaching wedge to split. Horses stumbled, the formation faltered, riders collided. The momentum broke. Alaric raised his spear. "For our future," he cried. His warriors echoed him. They surged down the slope, not in a reckless charge, but in a controlled descent, striking only long enough to push the enemy back through the pass, not to kill, not to provoke vengeance, but to remind them these mountains were not yet conquered. The clash was brief. The enemy commander, realizing the disadvantage, ordered a retreat. The riders pulled back several hundred meters, regrouping at a wider flat on the trail. They had not been defeated, but they had not gained the pass. Alaric and his people held the ridge. When all grew quiet, Irenae approached him. "They'll be back." "Yes," Alaric replied. "But now they know we are not shadows in the mountains." He looked eastward, where the dawn began to pierce the clouds. "We are the beginning of something new." The wind carried the echo of his words across the peaks, words that, in time, would become prophecy. The sun was beginning to dip behind the western peaks, turning the mountaintops into silhouettes of hammered bronze. The valley below was quiet, the kind of stillness that follows exhaustion rather than peace. The enemy had withdrawn for the day, but no one in the highland camp believed the danger had passed. Alaric watched the trail through a gap between two boulders, arms braced on the stone. His muscles ached. His voice was hoarse from shouting commands. The clash at the pass had lasted only minutes, but each moment had felt stretched thin, like a thread pulled too tight. "They're not gone," he murmured. Irenae, standing a few paces behind him, answered, "No, they're waiting, resting, planning." "In that," Alaric said, "they match us too well." Sario climbed up the ridge and dropped beside them, panting. "The scouts have finished their sweep. The riders have made camp a half-league down the trail. They've set up watchfires." "Good," Alaric replied. "At least they don't plan to climb the cliffs in the dark." Sario gave a nervous laugh. "Only fools would try that." Irenae tied back her hair, the wind tugging at the loose strands. "What will they do tomorrow?" Alaric's gaze drifted out over the valley again. "They will send an emissary. Before they risk more lives, they'll try to talk." "And if the envoy asks for submission again?" Sario asked. "We refuse," Alaric answered, respectfully, firmly. Sario nodded, though apprehension flickered in his eyes. Irenae stepped closer. "And what if refusal leads them to attack with full force?" "It will," Alaric said quietly. "But these mountains protect us, and they don't know them the way we do." He didn't add the part he kept hidden from the others, that if the riders attacked with overwhelming numbers or new tactics, they could breach the pass. Their resistance, courageous as it was, sat on a knife's edge. But there was something else weighing on his mind, something that he had not spoken aloud. The enemy commander, the man in the deep blue cloak. He fought with restraint. He protected wounded soldiers even as the chaos raged. He tried diplomacy. He reorganized under pressure. He was not like the raiding officers Alaric had encountered during the chaos after the Visigothic collapse. This one was educated, strategic, not cruel, but determined. "Who are you?" he whispered. That evening, when the fires were lit and the tired fighters ate boiled roots and flatbread, Alaric walked through the camp, checking on each person. Some had minor cuts, others simply stared into the flames, the weight of the day sinking into their bones. Yet a strange kind of pride glowed behind their exhaustion. They had stood together. They had not broken. When he reached the far end of the camp, he found Irenae tending to a man lying on a bed of pine branches. His head was bandaged. A heavy bruise covered his arm. "He took a fall when we descended," Irenae explained. "He will recover, but he should not fight tomorrow." The wounded man nodded weakly. "I can stand guard," he insisted. "You will rest," Irenae said firmly. "Guard your strength." Alaric smiled at her tone. "You command as if you were born to it." Irene finished applying salve before answering. No one is born to command. People simply learn what others need from them. He sat beside the fire. And what do you think I need from you? She paused, then met his eyes. Truth. Alaric exhaled slowly. Then here is truth. Tomorrow will be more difficult. The commander below is not reckless. He is clever. If I were him, I would probe the cliffs, search for alternate routes, or press the pass before dawn. And if you were you? She asked. He looked toward the dark valley again. I will prepare for all of it. Irene studied him. And if the burden becomes too heavy, then I will carry it anyway. She shook her head. You should not carry it alone. But before he could respond, a shout rose from the watchpost. Rider approaching! Everyone jumped to their feet. Alaric stood quickly, grabbing his spear. Hold positions, he ordered. No one attacks unless I signal. The figure approached on horseback, slowly, cautiously, carrying no weapon in hand. A white cloth fluttered from the saddle, a sign of truce. When the rider reached the base of the ridge, Alaric descended with Sario and 2 others at his side. The rider dismounted, pulled back his hood, and revealed a young man, barely more than 20, with tired eyes but no malice. He said, I am Karim, messenger for Commander Malik ibn Raidan. Alaric's brows lifted slightly. So the commander had a name. Karim continued, My commander requests a meeting. He wishes to speak face to face. He promises safe conduct for you and 1 companion. Alaric studied him. Why would he offer this? Because, he said simply, he honors your resistance, and because he has no desire to waste lives, yours or his. Alaric exchanged a look with Sario, then with Irene, who had followed him partway down the slope. This could be a trap, Sario whispered. Or it could be the only way to delay a battle we cannot afford, Irene added. Alaric turned back to the messenger. Tell Commander Malek I will meet him at dawn, at the flat stone halfway up the trail. I will bring only 1 companion. Karim bowed. He will be there. The rider mounted and departed, disappearing into the dimming valley. Alaric climbed back to camp. Who will you bring? Irene asked gently. Alaric hesitated. Sario, strong and loyal, would insist. One of the elders might offer wisdom. But the meeting required more than strength or strategy. He looked at Irene. I would ask you to come. Her eyes widened slightly. Me? Why? Because you see what I overlook. And sometimes, his voice softened, you steady me when my resolve shakes. Irene said nothing for a moment. Then she nodded once. Then I will come. The decision settled like a stone in his chest. Certain, immovable. Tomorrow he would face Commander Malek. Tomorrow 2 visions of the future would meet in the shadow of the mountains. And whatever happened would shape the destiny of everyone who called these peaks home. That night, Alaric slept little. He dreamed of the shattered Visigothic banners, of smoke rising over distant plains, of mountains collapsing, of a blue-cloaked figure standing at the edge of a cliff, extending a hand, or pushing him into the abyss. He could not tell which. Before dawn had fully broken, he and Irene made their way down the ridge, the early light painting the rocks with pale gold. At the meeting place, a wide stone outcrop overlooking the valley, Commander Malek ibn Raidan waited. He was younger than Alaric expected.
His posture was straight, his expression calm. His cloak rippled gently in the morning wind. When their eyes met, both men paused, not in hostility, but in recognition. Each had found the other worthy. "Alaric of Auster," Malek said with respectful nod. "Commander Malek," Alaric replied. "Let us speak." The fate of the mountains hung between them like a blade.
The sun was beginning to dip behind the western peaks, turning the mountaintops into silhouettes of hammered bronze. The valley below was quiet, the kind of stillness that follows exhaustion rather than peace. The enemy had withdrawn for the day, but no one in the highland camp believed the danger had passed. Alaric watched the trail through a gap between two boulders, arms braced on the stone. His muscles ached. His voice was hoarse from shouting commands. The clash at the pass had lasted only minutes, but each moment had felt stretched thin, like a thread pulled too tight. "They're not gone," he murmured. Irene, standing a few paces behind him, answered, "No, they're waiting, resting, planning." "In that," Alaric said, "they match us too well." Sario climbed up the ridge and dropped beside them, panting. "The scouts have finished their sweep. The riders have made camp a half-league down the trail. They've set up watchfires." "Good," Alaric replied. "At least they don't plan to climb the cliffs in the dark." Sario gave a nervous laugh. "Only fools would try that." Irene tied back her hair, the wind tugging at the loose strands. "What will they do tomorrow?" Alaric's gaze drifted out over the valley again. "They will send an emissary. Before they risk more lives, they'll try to talk." "And if the envoy asks for submission again?" Sario asked. "We refuse. Respectfully. Firmly." Sario nodded, though apprehension flickered in his eyes. Irene stepped closer. "And what if refusal leads them to attack with full force?" "It will," Alaric said quietly. "But these mountains protect us, and they don't know them the way we do." He didn't add the part he kept hidden from the others, that the enemy commander could breach the pass with overwhelming numbers or new tactics. Their resistance, courageous as it was, sat on a knife's edge. But there was something else weighing on his mind, something he had not spoken aloud. The enemy commander, the man in the deep blue cloak. He fought with restraint. He protected wounded soldiers, even as the chaos raged. He tried diplomacy. He reorganized under pressure. He was not like the raiding officers Alaric had encountered during the chaos after the Visigothic collapse. This one was educated, strategic, not cruel, but determined. "Who are you?" Alaric whispered. That evening, when the fires were lit and the tired fighters ate boiled roots and flatbread, Alaric walked through the camp, checking on each person. Some had minor cuts, others simply stared into the flames, the weight of the day sinking into their bones. Yet a strange kind of pride glowed behind their exhaustion. They had stood together. They had not broken. When he reached the far end of the camp, he found Irene tending to a man lying on a bed of pine branches. His head was bandaged. A heavy bruise covered his arm. "He took a fall when we descended," Irene explained. "He will recover, but he should not fight tomorrow." The wounded man nodded weakly. "I can stand guard," he insisted. "You will rest. Guard your strength." Alaric smiled at her tone. "You command as if you were born to it." Irene finished applying a salve before answering. "No one is born to command.
people simply learn what others need from them. He sat beside the fire. And what do you think I need from you? She paused, then met his eyes. Truth. Alaric exhaled slowly. Then here is truth. Tomorrow will be more difficult. The commander below is not reckless. He is clever. If I were him, I would probe the cliffs, search for alternate routes, or press the pass before dawn. And if you were you? Irene asked. He looked toward the dark valley again. I will prepare for all of it. Irene studied him. And if the burden becomes too heavy, he took a deep breath. Then I will carry it anyway. She shook her head. You should not carry it alone. But before he could respond, a shout rose from the watchpost. Rider approaching! Everyone jumped to their feet. Alaric stood quickly, grabbing his spear. Hold positions, he ordered. No one attacks unless I signal. The figure approached on horseback, slowly, cautiously, carrying no weapon in hand. A white cloth fluttered from the saddle, a sign of truce. When the rider reached the base of the ridge, Alaric descended with Sario and 2 others at his side. The rider dismounted, pulled back his hood, and revealed a young man, barely more than 20, with tired eyes but no malice. I am Karim, he said, messenger for Commander Malik ibn Raidan. Alaric's brows lifted slightly. So the commander had a name. Karim continued, My commander requests a meeting. He wishes to speak face to face. He promises safe conduct for you and 1 companion. Alaric studied him. Why would he offer this? Because, Karim said simply, he honors your resistance. And because he has no desire to waste lives, yours or his. Alaric exchanged a look with Sario, then with Irene, who had followed him partway down the slope. This could be a trap, Sario whispered. Or it could be the only way to delay a battle we cannot afford, Irene added. Alaric turned back to the messenger. Tell Commander Malek I will meet him at dawn, at the flat stone halfway up the trail. I will bring only 1 companion. Karim bowed. He will be there. The rider mounted and departed, disappearing into the dimming valley. Alaric climbed back to camp. Who will you bring? Irene asked gently. Alaric hesitated. Sario, strong and loyal, would insist. One of the elders might offer wisdom, but the meeting required more than strength or strategy. He looked at Irene. I would ask you to come. Her eyes widened slightly. Me? Why? Because you see what I overlook, and sometimes, his voice softened, you steady me when my resolve shakes. Irene said nothing for a moment. Then she nodded once. Then I will come. The decision settled like a stone in his chest, certain, immovable. Tomorrow he would face Commander Malik. Tomorrow, 2 visions of the future would meet in the shadow of the mountains, and whatever happened would shape the destiny of everyone who called these peaks home. That night, Alaric slept little. He dreamed of the shattered Visigothic banners, of smoke rising over distant plains, of mountains collapsing, of a blue-cloaked figure standing at the edge of a cliff, extending a hand or pushing him into the abyss. He could not tell which. Before dawn had fully broken, he and Irene made their way down the ridge, the early light painting the rocks with pale gold. At the meeting place, A wide stone outcrop overlooking the valley, Commander Malik ibn Raidan waited. He was younger than Alaric expected. His posture was straight, his expression calm. His cloak rippled gently in the morning wind. When their eyes met, both men paused, not in hostility, but in recognition. Each had found the other worthy. "Alaric of Astur," Malik said with a respectful nod. "Commander Malik," Alaric replied, "let us speak." The fate of the mountains hung between them like a blade.
The dawn that broke on the 5th day after the pact seemed almost gentle, as if the mountains themselves were exhaling after holding their breath too long. Mist curled along the ridgelines. Sunlight spilled across the slopes in soft gold. It should have been a peaceful morning. But Alaric felt no peace. He stood on a narrow ledge overlooking the valley trail, watching the figure of Sario descend alongside Commander Malik's column. The young Highlander walked with confidence, a pack over his shoulder, pointing out safe footholds and narrow bends as the soldiers followed behind him. Malik rode at the head of the group, glancing back occasionally, perhaps to ensure Sario was treated with respect, or perhaps to confirm the terms of the pact were being honored. Alaric wasn't sure which. Irene came to stand beside him, her arms wrapped around her cloak against the morning chill. "He will be fine," she said softly. Alaric didn't answer. He watched until the column disappeared behind a bend of rock. Only then did he turn away. "It is not Sario I mistrust. It is the world he walks into." Over the next 2 days, the camp settled into an uneasy calm. Scouts ranging the cliffs saw no sign of hidden troops, no approaching threats. The watchfires down in the valley disappeared after Malik's departure. Some people dared to believe the pact had bought them real safety. Others, especially the older survivors, watched Alaric with wary eyes, asking without words if he had bargained too much of their independence away. Eldric, leaning heavily on his cane, approached him one afternoon near the campfires. "You carry the mountain on your shoulders again," the elder said. Alaric smiled faintly. "Only part of it." "You acted wisely," Eldric continued. "A wise leader bends when needed, to avoid breaking." "And yet," Alaric replied quietly, "every compromise carries a thorn." Eldric's eyes softened. "It is not the compromises that define us, my boy. It is what we do with the time they buy." The words settled deep inside Alaric. Time. That was the true currency of resistance. On the 3rd evening, Sario returned. He stumbled into the camp at sunset, dust-covered and exhausted, but alive. The crowd surged toward him, cheering. Irene rushed forward first, checking him for wounds. Finding none, she released a breath of pure relief. Alaric approached calmly, though his heart beat faster. "What happened?" he asked. Sario straightened. "I guided them through the lower valley trails to the south. They met the rebel raiders 2 days ago. No battle, just a standoff." He hesitated. "Malik negotiated with them." "Negotiated?" Alaric repeated, surprised. Sario nodded. "He convinced them to cease raiding in exchange for protection of their villages. They agreed. No one died." Alaric felt the words lodge in his chest. "No blood spilled at all?" "No," Sario said. "He kept his word. And when I asked to return home, he let me leave immediately." Many in the camp exchanged glances, some relieved, others confused. Irene smiled. "Then the pact stands." "Yes," Sario said, proudly. "And Commander Malik asked me to deliver this." He handed Alaric a sealed parchment. Alaric broke it open. Inside was a written agreement, clear, formal, signed by Malik himself. It acknowledged the autonomy of the Northern Highlands. It confirmed that no tribute would be demanded for 3 years. It stated that no soldiers would cross into the Highland valleys without express permission from Alaric's council. But at the bottom, in Malac's own hand, was a note. Your people show resilience worthy of a future kingdom. Guard this seed well. Malak ibn Raidan. Alaric stared at the words for a long moment. A seed, not a conquest, a beginning. That night, a gathering filled the main hall. Lanterns glowed softly, and the scent of mountain herbs and wood smoke floated in the air. Elders, fighters, and families filled the space. Sario sat in the center, recounting his journey. Children leaned forward, eyes wide. Young warriors listened with admiration. But all eyes turned when Alaric stepped to the front. He held the parchment in his hands. We stand today, he began, not as wanderers, not as scattered survivors, but as a people who have secured our place in these mountains. A murmur of agreement rose through the hall. We are not ruled, Alaric continued. We are recognized. We are respected, not by bowing, but by proving we would not break. Irene stepped quietly to his side, her presence steadying him. But let us not be fools, Alaric said, his voice steady. This pact is not freedom. It is space. It is time. And what we do with that time will define us. He held up the parchment. This is not an end. This is the seed of a future I cannot see yet, but I believe in it, and I ask you to believe in it too. The hall filled with nods and murmurs of hope. Eldrick lifted his cane. Then let us plant it, he declared, and let the mountains bear witness. Cheers rose, subdued but sincere, not the cheers of victors, but of people rediscovering their strength. Later, after the gathering dispersed, Alaric walked outside. The moon hung above the peaks, silver and serene. Irene approached quietly, standing beside him. She didn't speak at first. She simply watched the moon's reflection shimmer across the snowcaps. At last she said, "You carry yourself differently now." "Do I?" Alaric asked. "Yes," she replied, "like someone who sees more than survival, like someone who sees a future." Alaric exhaled slowly. "Perhaps, but I do not know what that future looks like." "You don't need to," Irene said gently. "You just need to build toward it." He turned to her. "I could not have done this without you." She smiled softly. "And you will not build what comes next without the people around you." They stood in silence a moment longer, the night cool around them, the valley quiet. At last Irene asked, "What will you do now, Alaric of Astur?" He looked toward the dark horizon where distant lands lay. "I will prepare," he said. "Strengthen the highlands, train scouts, fortify our passes, not for war, but for endurance. For the day when our people no longer need to hide, when we can stand openly as a mountain-born nation. And for that," Irene said, "you will need more than weapons. Yes, I will need unity, wisdom, patience, and people who steady me when I falter." His gaze held hers. Irene's breath caught slightly. "And you will have them," she said. He nodded. Together they looked out across the sleeping mountains, strong, ancient, unbroken. The pact with Malak had not ended their struggle. It had given it shape. It had turned scattered survivors into a people. And though they didn't know it yet, future generations would look back on this moment as the birth of the Reconquest, the quiet beginning of a long journey toward freedom, one forged not only with valor, but with wisdom, unity, and hope. A seed had been planted, and the mountains were listening.